12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we had an appointment at 12:30. So I just wanted to touch base, make sure everybody can hear me. If you'll just tap it into the chat bar there that you can hear me. We've got the final day of the MREA admin contract to close. So somebody can just type in there, make sure everybody can hear me. It looks like on my end everything is good. Yep. So there we go, loud and clear. Love it. Awesome. So here's what I'm going to start with. Is that now this is the last week of the contract to close MREA version of this. And so we're going to cover chapters 5, 6, and then 7 is, let's see, we got one person that can't hear, everybody else can hear, so that must be on your end. So we've got chapter 7 is just kind of a review, kind of a follow-up, what are you doing type thing. And so as we get started on this, we're going to kind of jump right on in. And so and then at the end of this class, we'll actually kind of finish up and say, what was your biggest aha? What did you get out of all three of these classes, and kind of go forward from there. So as we're looking at this, we're going to jump right in on chapter number 5 on page number 90 of the MREA admin contract to close piece. You know, I love this little form, and I've got to ask, how many of us are sending a form to our clients that is as clear as the one on page number 90, right? And it's actually in the attachments that I sent out to everybody that has all the forms on there. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an actual paper form. You could do it in a paper form. Yet you could do this in an email form. Yet I just love that the bottom of it is that the invitation part of it. The invitation part of it at the very bottom, it says that you are invited to the closing of your new home. And so then it has the address of the property, it has the time, the location, the date. And then if you have any questions, to please call me or call the closing department at this number. And then at the very top, it's got all of the checklist items that they need to bring to the closing. I just thought it's so clear, it's so precise, and sometimes even myself, when we're writing emails, we have a tendency to be so over communicative that it's too clear and we know nobody's reading it. So I always like to think in terms of when I'm sending out emails in bold and those kind of things, think in terms of bullet points. What are people actually going to read? They're going to see the subject line. So the subject line is obviously important. They're going to see the first sentence, so they'll probably read the first sentence. And then from there, it really needs to be bullet pointed and graphic. And so that's this right here. The next piece over here on the next page, on page number 91, is the same thing, except for this is the closing of your home. So just the wording's a little bit different. The first one is the closing of your new home, and this is the closing of your current home. And so obviously it's buyer versus a seller, so as you're looking at that. Now, this class, I really want to talk about checklist in this class, because in all honesty, when we boil these things down, especially in the internet age and those kind of things, that's really what we're talking about, is checklists through all of this. And so as we go through each one of these, and as we go through the pages, if you're following along in the book, my intention is to go right along with the book, is that each one of these items needs to be an item on a checklist for your admin. Now, I will tell you, I'm actually, as I mentioned to you, I'm in a hotel today. I'm coaching, or I'm not coaching, I'm actually attending a class with Tim Hiles and the real estate lead generation machine with Tim Hile. And he actually said something earlier today, and he's like, you know, hey, I was hiring my admin, and I was going through and I was telling him all the things that I needed to do, because basically I had never taken the time to actually write down a job description. And the person that they were that he was actually interviewing turned around and he said, Can I just write down, take some notes so that I can, what I believe is writing in a job description? Tim was like, oh yeah, that's awesome. Be more than happy to do that. Go ahead. And so the guy turned around and he started writing, and he said he wrote 2 sentences on a piece of paper, and he said, so here's the job description of somebody that you're looking for. Number 1, get things done. Love that. Number 2, any other tasks that come along that need to be done. And I was like, that is so much clarity right there when it comes to creating an MREA admin's job description. Now, don't take that in a negative way if you're an admin, yet in all honesty, the admin is there to keep us agents in our lane, keep us in our lane. And those are the 5 things of a real estate agent's job description: lead generation, lead follow-up, going on appointments, negotiating contracts, and script practice and role play. And so that's our 20%. and all the other stuff is the admin's 80%. And so it's a pretty cool thing when we actually realize that that's how everything's supposed to work, so that the mega agent can actually stay in the lane of their 5 things, thus replacing not only their income and replacing your income, so that they're making enough money to cover both people, plus have enough profit on the other end to make sure that they are able to hire and get new systems and those kind of things as needed to grow the business. So first checklist, or first item on the checklist, is keys, insurance, and utilities. These are kind of the final details. So keys, insurance, and utility. How are you going to get, and this is, when I was an individual agent with one admin, this was a nemesis for me, I guess is probably the best word, is that I would constantly be running, get to the closing table, and the other agent look at me and say, hey, you got the key? Still in the lockbox. So, and then I would have to take apart my schedule, figure out how I could get to that house after the closing so I could actually hand the new buyers the key, take the sign, all of that stuff, because I'd not planned to do it before the closing. So make sure that you've got runners, or you got somebody, either the agent or someone that's responsible for that. And the best way to do it is to have it on the checklist and have it in the checklist, and prepared before the closing. Now, you got the pre-audit on the closing statement, now called the closing statement. In the book, it was actually called the HUD statement. And so on the closing disclosure, what you've got is you need to go through and check everything, every invoice that's on there, where are all the taxes. Make sure that our clients have enough money to bring to the table. Make sure that they understand. And I know a lot of times that's coming from the mortgage company right now. Yet when we can make that call and just, give them that voice of concern or that voice of care, saying, hey, here's what we got, here's what we're doing, just desiring to make sure we got everything lined up. Is there anything I can help you with, or anything we can help you with if you're on the team? It's a pretty big beast. It's also making sure that when you get to the closing table, there is no surprises. So make sure as a closing coordinator, you actually know how to read the closing disclosure and what each piece means. See, that's, for years I've seen agents that they really did not understand what the closing disclosure actually said, or the old HUD statement said, or what each piece means. What's an aggregated adjustment, right? You should know what an aggregated adjustment, and that it comes from a government, it comes from a government formula, and it's just money that they're giving you back because you're going to have too much in your escrow account. And so, make sure that you know those pieces, so if you get that question from a client, you can actually explain it to them at a high level. All right. Also, make sure if you got a home warranty, make sure the home warranty is on there. Now, most of us or someone on our team is doing what we call the walkthrough, the final walkthrough, making sure that everything is done. And I like to do these three to 5 days before the closing. In our market, it's standard about 3 days before the closing, so that if anything does come up, we can make sure that we can have a few more days to get it repaired before the closing. And we've even gone as far as to actually, do a reinspection on the property and actually make our clients sign if they desire to do a reinspection, so that if they can't, they're not able to come back to us and say, well, you didn't tell us about a reinspection, and now look at what we got and we missed. And so making sure that home inspector goes back out there, for $100, whatever it costs in your areas, it's kind of a peace of mind. I'm not a home inspector. I'm not going to crawl in the attic to make sure that they put that, cap in there, or put a cap on a terminated wire, or crawl in the crawl space. I've done it before, and yet it's really not part of our job, because in all honesty, that's what they're hiring the professional to do, of the home inspector. And so make sure that the home inspector is doing their job and doing a reinspection on the property to protect the clients. If they gone in there, let's say it's a double tap breaker, meaning 2 wires going into one breaker, which is a no-no in the electrical world, yet there's a lot of them that happen. We see it all the time, and it's a really simple fix. Yet you actually got to take the panel off, the panel cover on the breaker panel, to see if it's actually been fixed. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying. And so having that reinspection can be a huge, huge piece. And then also, after the reinspection is done and you've done your final walkthrough, having your client sign off on a document. And so guess what? We've actually sent that to you in those forms that we emailed out to everybody. And so it's got the buyer walkthrough acceptance form. It's got the property addresses. It says, we on this date have inspected and found all appliances, heating, cooling systems, plumbing fixtures, and condition of the electrical systems, electrical fixtures, and the condition of the structure's features, which included in the purchase, to be acceptable condition. And we acknowledge that we are being offered a home warranty program to purchase through the broker, right? And then here, so they hereby relinquish the seller, owner, any realtor, broker, owner, and all other parties involved in the purchase of this aforementioned property harmless. Ladies and gentlemen, how many of us are using that? Because I'm telling you, this document's a powerful document when it comes to CYAing on your, somebody coming back and coming back on you. I personally have never been pulled into arbitration or anything, yet I have had to do 2 arbitrations for 2 of my agents. And because we had everything documented and had all of our systems documented, and both times when they went through the exploratory phase, we actually won the case before we even went into the actual grievance panel. Because when they went through, it was a situation that, here it was, and we had it covered. We had the documentation saying that we had done every single thing that needed to be done. And so actually even had to go to court for a client one time, that my client was suing at the previous seller on a property that they did not purchase. And so my clients actually won because I had everything documented. And so making sure that you've got those documents, not just the stuff that the broker in charge requires, the contract, the agency disclosure brochure, all that stuff, that's pretty standard. Yet making sure that you've got your forms in there as well to cover yourself. It's a really cool piece. Now, there's actually a form in there in the book on page number 96 that actually covers if something has not been repaired that they said should have been repaired or that they had agreed to repair. There's a form in there that you could actually do a concessions, or you could actually, make sure that it's getting prepared before closing. So just make sure that all of those pieces are taken care of, and so that you can avoid that challenge later on. All right, chapter 5 is still going on here. This is the second part of chapter 5. The first part was all the way up to the closing. Now we're at the closing. We close the property. Now what do we do? And so there's a really cool form in here, and you don't have to do this, yet there's 2 forms I would really like to talk about in this situation. One we're going to cover in the operations manual, I believe, yes, in the operations manual. And it mentions it in this document, in the contract to close as well. One is called the VIP questionnaire, and it's in the operations manual that Keller Williams has given us in KW Connect. The VIP form, I think we may have talked about it before. It has the seller, or it has the husband, the spouse, or spouse and spouse partner, and then it has their birthday, it has their anniversary date, it also has their favorite restaurant, their favorite flower, and then it has a list of all their kids and their kids' birthdays. And so now you get all this information that you can now put into the database, that you can now assign reminders to, and so that it'll remind you when their home anniversary is coming up. It'll remind you when their actual wedding anniversary is coming up. It'll also remind you when their birthdays are and when their children's birthdays are, so that you can actually send them, a cupcake or whatever it is, maybe just a card. I love it when my past client calls me and goes, "My children love getting your birthday cards." Because everybody on the team signs it and we just send it out to them. And so it's just a great piece. Now, the other form that we're talking about is congratulations on closing your home. And it actually has name, new addresses, new telephone numbers, so that they can actually fill out that information for you at the closing table. And then it says on moving day, we'll provide you lunch. So what day are you planning on moving on? And what would you like? Pizza? What kind of toppings would you like on the pizza? Or would you like subs? Or would you like, what type of meats? Or would you like fried chicken? Right? And so they get a choice, and then you could bring it out there, just a way to kind of get to know the neighbors, get to know them, and just continuing to build the database at an even higher level and build the relationship. Now, we've gone through, and there's a piece that I know that some of us are missing, and I did not realize it until somebody had posted on Facebook that they were actually missing this piece. And I was like, wow, because it was something that we had covered at a higher level, I guess, from the get-go, because I had created an Excel spreadsheet around it. And it is actually that you're taking your after closing, and you're making sure that you're getting your DA form, your distribution authorization form from Keller Williams, and you're matching that up with the actual, with your spreadsheet to make sure that your agents are getting the right amount, make sure that you're receiving the right amount, and then not clearing it out until you actually go and enter that into the spreadsheet and get it in the bank. So you're not truly closing it out to make sure that it actually goes in the bank, so that you're ensuring that your checks are actually getting in the bank. Big mega team, I would have thought that would have been something they would have taken care of, and yet they were closing transactions and not ensuring that every check got in the bank. And so they were running it was a hole in their system. And so it's just an easy way to make sure that you're doing that by checking it out on an Excel spreadsheet or CTE or pipeline report, all of that stuff that we've got, all those tools that we've got out there. Now, after closing, completing the file. Now, I'm not going to say that this piece is not is out of date, because it's still there. It's still to a point. You've got three copies of the settlement statement, 3 copies of the MLS printout sheet, MLS update, the KW check, making checks, doing all of that. And yet most of that's done in .loop now, so it's not something where you've got to make all these. So you got to build a file for you got to build a file for the office. All that's done in .loop now. All right. So here's the thing. So as we're looking at this and we're looking at the after closing, you got seller files and you got buyer files. You may have a few relocation. You may have a few, I wouldn't say relocation yet, like a referral file as well. Yet, what all the things that you need on there, and that your state's going to require all the items that you need to have in there. Yet I'm going to tell you, make sure that any paperwork or any documentation, like if you took notes on an MLS sheet that they didn't like that one, they like this one, stick that in that folder. I know it's going to get big and you got to keep it for so many years, or upload it into .loop, because it's you can just put a folder in there and say miscellaneous items for this form, and just upload those type of things so that they've got their notes, those kind of things, so that if anything ever happens and they have to come back on you, you're protected. And I'm telling you, you got to make sure at this point in the process that you've got all of that stuff, because you don't know what. I'm sure many of you know what the statute of limitations are in your offices or in your states, and yet you never want to be caught and not have those pieces in there. Well, I thought that I did this, or I know I did this. I mean, we've even gone as far as we're printing out emails and putting them in there as well. So KW file, we all know that. We all know the things that we got to do. We talked about doing the green sheets, those kind of things. Other closing paperwork is. Here's the one thing that I'm talking about is we get to this database and after closing. Are you getting your client's new contact information in there? If they were a seller, where did they move to? Did they move out of state? Do you continue to keep them in your database? I'm here to tell you yes, because they still have friends here locally, right? And check and see how their new move is going, those kind of things. And so as you're going through that, just make sure that you've got that there, and so that you're getting that contact information, you're getting it into the database. And rule number 1, don't let the agents enter it into the database, because it's not going to happen. You as the admin or someone in your admin staff needs to be the one that actually enters everything into that database, because they will turn it into mush. Trust me, I know, I've done it. Been there, did that. Right? And so, you got to close out the property in the MLS sheet. So make sure that you're closing out the MLS, making sure that the right people are getting credit for it. If you're a team and you got a buyer that sold a house, make sure that other team is closing out, or that other agent is closing it out, so the team's getting credit for it in your multiple listing. Or if you are supposed to get, whoever's supposed to get credit for it, set up a reminder that maybe 5 days after the closing that you're going in and making sure that that's confirmed, so that your MLS numbers are correct. It's a huge piece, because we've gone back and found that other agents would close it out. And I'm not going to say they did it on purpose, yet they were closing it out in their own name, like they did a double-sided transaction. And then we weren't actually getting credit for it in the multiple listing service. And so when people are pulling our numbers, they're like, wait a minute. So make sure that you're getting credit for it. Make sure the right person's getting credit for it on the buy side. Now, change the status to close, confirm that it was given in the MLS, make sure that everything's gotten in there in the multiple listing service. Then now you're going to shift it over. Now, it actually talks about in the book here, it just says, put them as a past client. I'm going to suggest adding one more piece to that. I'm going to say that you put them into the database and you put them as past client and then the year that they actually closed. Because we know that on average, people are going to live in their home 5 to 7 years. And so if you have a past client from 5 years ago, guess what? Most likely they may be getting ready to move again. And so now you can kind of grade your database based on when they did sell, those kind of things. Let's say that, you had a seller that closed when the market was down and now the market's up. And so now they can actually come out and make some money. And if you help a seller realize, let's say, an additional $50,000 in equity, how long would it take them at their job to earn an extra $50,000 in equity? And so they may actually be looking to buy a new house and downsize and take that $50,000 and use it for their retirement. You don't know, and unless you've know when they bought and what the market was that year, and you got the year assigned in there, make sure that you've got that in there. All right, now here's the next piece, and I love this part of it because it's actually going to give you some tips and a follow-up plan, because a lot of times we don't know what to do to follow up with people, and so we really don't follow up, and we're kind of nervous about putting them into the database. So orphan clients. Now, an orphan client is someone that, let's say you had the buyer, and then the seller was working with another agent. Well, that's an orphan client, unless they were a Keller Williams agent, of course. And so if they were a Keller Williams agent, then, of course, you would leave them with that agent. Yet, if they were an orphan client, meaning they were with another agent, we know that 89% of the people said that they would use the same agent and only 12% actually do, then there's a huge opportunity there for you to actually gain, like 79% for you to gain the ability to work with that person in the future if you stay in touch. So make sure you're adding the other party to your database. So whether it was a seller or whether it was a buyer, make sure that you're putting them in your database. And here's the cool part. It's actually going to give you a full follow-up marketing plan for them. So now you've removed your lot box, making sure, because remember we talked about that you've got your signs numbered, so you check it in on your sheet that the sign has been brought back. It's no longer in control of the agent, it's now in your control. And so you've got your lot box back, you've checked off that serial number that agent has returned it. And so now all the listings are removed. Most of us do not manually enter listings into our websites any longer. They're mostly IDX feeds. And if you do have a website, making sure that it's removed from magazines, any advertisement that you've got out there that's going on a regular basis. So having a checklist. So basically what we're talking about is having a checklist that actually has all those items on it to make sure that not one piece gets missed. Because it's nothing worse than seeing a marketing piece go out and it's a house that you closed 2 months and it's actually been in there for 2 months and you've never removed it from your marketing. So just kind of watch that, make sure that you got a checklist around those items to make sure that everything's been moved. And we're really talking about one checklist. It could be a piece of paper. It could be a task list in a task manager. It could be a task list in .loop. It could be a task list in a project management software. Just make sure that you're using that checklist and have that checklist that you're checking those items off. Now, page number 107, we're talking about follow-up marketing. How do we follow up? So I love this is that the last piece on your checklist is to actually launch your marketing plans after the fact. So making sure that, when somebody closes, you've gone through, you put it in there, you've entered their new contact information into the database. And now what you're doing is you're actually going through and actually assigning a new campaign for them to be followed up on even after the closing. And so as you're going through this, it's got your moving day gift, your events, you've got your just sold, your just postcards, and make sure those things go out, your post-close communication plan, your HUD statement for tax purposes, making sure that the clients have that, and then your post-close marketing plan. All right? Now, make sure that if you're using just listed, just sold cards, that you're doing some type of, that's marketing based. Make sure that you're doing some type of prospecting base as well, where maybe you're picking up the phone and backing that up along the way as well to make it gives it more oomph, it gives it more impact, it gives them more ability. You can send the card and then do a circle prospecting around that where you send all the cards to and say, hey, did you receive my card? We just sold a house in your neighborhood. All right. And so going through that. Now, here's the cool part, post-communication plans. So you got a congratulations on the purchase of your new home or congratulations on the sale of your home, a satisfactory survey. Now, we're using SurveyMonkey to do this survey. There's a book out there called the Net Promoter Score. And so that's the system that we use on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being high. How likely are you to refer us to your friends and family? All right. 2 questions. That's the first question. Second question is the why. It's all why. We're not going in, did we do this correctly? Did we do this correctly? Give us a scale of 1 to 10, because what will happen is that sometimes we will trigger something and they will think about something and they're like, well, I don't know if that was good or not. So I don't know. Maybe it's just a low score. And so then you get a kind of an odd score. So that's why we use the net promoter score. On a score of 1 to 10, with 10 being high, how would you rate our service, or how how likely are you to refer us to your friends and family? And then the next piece down is why. Why or why not? All right. And so making sure that you're doing a satisfaction survey on that, so you know where your holes are at. We've even talked about doing it after the buyer's agency appointment, doing it after under contract, and now doing it after closing, so that you've got different feedback points throughout your entire business. An introduction to the advocacy appreciation program. Remember we talked about that, what is it? What would people pay you to be in your database for, right? And so, like Amazon Prime, as Tony DeCello, Diana Kokoska's husband, says, is that what Amazon Prime is strictly a database that people pay $79 a year for, because it's got some perks. What are the perks of being in your database that people would be willing to pay you for? So think about it. It's just a different idea, different mindset. All right. Calling out a week after the client, ask them how they're doing, calling over the next few months. And there's actually a schedule. So, the week after, 10 days after, 30 days after, 90 days after, so that you're continuing to follow up with them through that first time. And a lot of times we're scared sometimes because we didn't do a reinspection. We don't know what's going on with the house. And so what if they don't like it? Well, don't be scared, because, 95% of the people actually do love it. And so that 5% that don't, they probably wouldn't have been happy with anything that you sold them anyway. And so just still call those people too. All right. And just console them, touch your chest, a lot of empathy for those. And, if there's anything that we can do to help, don't hesitate to give me a call type thing. All right. Next is your 365 days after the closing, sending your anniversary letter, and then also updating your contact information, moving them over to your Client for Life program, which is your 33 touch. Now, remember, after you've closed them, some people go ahead and immediately put them on a 33 touch. That's okay, because it's better than not. Yet after you close someone, the 33 touch only has 4 calls every quarter, or 4 calls every year, one a quarter. And so I'm not 100% certain that's enough when you close someone right off the bat. So I think you need more phone calls in there that first year than just putting them on a 33 touch, because you're going to follow up after 7 days, follow up after 10 days, follow up after 30 days, follow up after 90 days. And those are all going to be phone calls. 1, because you're going to check in to see how they're doing, and they're making sure that they were not just a commission check for you. And two, you're actually making sure that you're cementing that relationship even deeper and asking for referrals. All right. Now, after the closing, you've got your orphan congratulation. So if you actually had a seller, if you were the buyer, bringing them to another agent's seller, that seller moves, you've got that seller's information, you're going to send that congratulations on the purchase of your new home when they moved out of that one, where they moved to. And so that's for the orphan client. And then you've got a full piece here. And this is where you can even send them out a VIP program questionnaire, and then invite them into your advocacy program. Like Amazon's is called Prime. Mine's called the Supreme Service. And so what is it that you're doing to kind of build that rapport? Again, in all your, right there on page 109 has the full checklist to just upload it into your database, upload it into there, put the reminders in, whatever you're using for your reminder pieces, and it's right there. It's right there. Post-close marketing plan, again, the advocacy program, all of that. So let's review, because we're on that part of it, kind of review. And I just ask, as we went through that section of it, what are some of your ahas as we were going through that piece of it? Just type them into the chat bar there. Is there anything new that you heard that you hadn't heard before? Any thoughts around anything that we just covered on any of that? You can type it in the chat bar. It's okay. No right or wrong answer. It just is. Going once. Going twice. Bold. All right, here we go. Chapter 6, making it easier. Making it easier. Now, I'm going to blow through this chapter pretty quickly because all it's doing is talking about all the checklists. That's it. All this is doing is talking about all the checklists that you're going to basically need as you're going through this process. When we've already emailed out all of the checklists, all the forms that you're going to need, they're already been emailed over to you. You can take them and put them into Google Forms, Smart Sheets. You can do whatever that works for you. It can be just hardcore paper if that's what works for you. And so as you're going through this, make sure that you're just following up. So we're just going to go through each one of these checklists. So number one, new file processing checklist, a closing packet checklist, a contract checklist, right? When a contract first comes in, this is all the things that you need to check. A completed post-close checklist. That's where we're talking about, the MLS sheet, lot boxes, all those items. A post-closing communication checklist. That's their follow-up for the first year. And then it's exceeding the seller expectations checklist, right? And so that may be a survey checklist or even the one before, making sure that, you're communicating your buyer 10s, those kind of things. For this closing to be a 10, what's the one thing that has to happen? Well, of course, number one, be closed, get it closed and on time. Number two, for this closing to be a 10-10, what does this have to be? Or a 10 plus, what does this have to be? And then for this closing to actually be a 10 plus, what has to happen? So now you know their top three things that they have to make this closing an absolute 10. Remind them what those three items were, so that guess what? You're gonna remind them of what kind of quality service that you provided them. Now, on this, it's actually talking about the closing coordination checklist or actual calendar. And so I love the calendar piece. And some people do it visually on the wall. Some people do it in a Google Calendar. I know I get an invite on my team from Google Calendar where the closings are at, those kind of things. And then we also have an Excel spreadsheet of when to close, because we need that Excel spreadsheet of when they're supposed to close, because we're going to talk about here in just a minute, because that's actually going on page number 124. We're actually talking about your cash flow sheet. Right now, this is when do most of our closings happen? Most of our closings happen at the end of the month. And so, they're going to happen between, sometimes between the 25th and the 30th. So that's where we get this mass infusion of cash. And then we've got to manage that infusion of cash for the entire month. Now you got payrolls in there. You've got, all the different things that you've got to pay for. At the first part of my month, of course, I've got all of my coaching contracts for me and my team. I've got some expenses that we have on the team that come out at the first of the month. And so the first of the month is when majority of all of our expenses happen. And then we kind of, we got payroll, we pay every 2 weeks. And so as we're paying every 2 weeks and we're going through this, make sure that you've got enough cash on hand to make sure that you don't miss payroll. The last thing that any employer desires to do is to miss payroll. The second most important thing, number one, don't miss payroll. Number two, don't miss payroll taxes, right? Now, you got a little bit more time in most states to go ahead and get those paid depending on what you're doing. And don't miss those payroll taxes. That is one, ladies and gentlemen, that they will come in and shut your business down. I've actually had friends that, not real estate friends yet, I've had some friends that have actually had that happen in their business where they've come in and gotten a cease and desist because they hadn't paid their payroll taxes. So you kind of have to be careful on that one. That's a big one. And so, make sure you get your employees paid and make sure that you get your payroll taxes paid. All right. Now, you've got your MREA, you've got buyer source record. These are all the pieces that you're going to be putting in there. And it's just talking about the definitions of each one of them. You even have that sample buyer, spreadsheet like I was using that was telling to close out these properties. Managing changes. All right. Now, in real estate, we know that nothing changes during the closing process, does it? Right? It does. It always does. And so, closing costs are going to change. The lender might change. The appraiser's going to come back and it didn't appraise. So you got all these different pieces on there that you've got to deal with, or you get to deal with. And so make sure that you know all those addendums that you're going to need for that. Make sure that your closing coordinator is familiar with all of those addendums. Now, they could actually fill them out and then have the agents check them over if they're not licensed. If they are licensed, they can go ahead and send them out themselves. All right, so make sure you're familiar with all of your addendums. Early closing addendum, another big one is a seller leaseback addendum. Make sure hold harmless addendum after the closing for the seller staying longer. All those are in there. Now, the more these systems that you have, the more that you're operating these systems at a higher level, what's going to eventually happen is that you're going to be a scalable business. You're going to be a scalable business. So not only one are you going to be duplicatable, you're going to be scalable. And what that does is that leads you into expansion, which we talk about within Keller Williams Realty quite a lot, is now you can take your systems and expand your systems into another area with more, a new agent there. Your admin hub may still have some bandwidth in your local admin hub. So they're doing expansion or doing the admin work for an expansion partner. And then that expansion partner will allow you to go and build onto your hub admin base and then go and hire another expansion partner. And you can just see how this thing can start to build and build and build. I think Cody example is probably a really good example of that. In basically just over 2 years, gentleman's got like 63 expansion teams around the country. And so it's a pretty big piece when you put all those things together. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that's the contract to close in a nutshell. Now I've got tons of time that I can spend with you. It's 1:06, and so you basically have 24 minutes that I'm more than happy to spend with you, answering any questions that anybody may have. Basically going through and making sure that you've got a plan implemented and a way that you're going to take this contract to close chapter and actually implement it into your business. And so this is one where I'm not going to quit because I won't say, going bold. And so what you've got is I need some questions. What is it that you need? We've gone through the book. We've gone through the chapters. I've taught you all of that. What do you still need in your business? What are your parts that I can help you with? All right. My pleasure. My pleasure. All right. What else? Need some good Jeopardy music to play right here. Do 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 do. So I know that there's nobody's jumping off on the call, and so I know there's still people that are. What's happening is you're waiting to see what other people are going to ask. And I'm just excited to start implementing. I know, right? I'm excited for you because it's going to be powerful. What visuals do you have to show progress? Awesome. Good question. So let me ask for clarity on that question, Darren. Is that visuals to show the agents of the closings and the under contracts, or is that the visuals to show the dates of closings, or is that visuals to show where we're at in the process for each one? So just a little clarity on that so I can help you. Because I know one of the big visuals that we use in the process for each one. So we use a product called Wise Agent. It's a fairly inexpensive product. I think it's like $29 a month. I know some of you are using Brevity, those kind of things. And so everything's in Wise Agent. Our clients have the ability to log in with a Fusion code so that they can actually see everything that we've done on their process. And our agents can see everything that's going on in the process so that they've got those Fusion codes and they're all set and ready to go. Visually, one of the things that we're doing for under contracts is that I've went and had a local vinyl company create little houses, and we put 20 of them on the door because our goal is to put 20 houses under contract every single month. And so every time an agent on my team, we have a glass door, and so those 20 houses are on there. And they put their initials in one of those houses when they put one under contract. And so as you're going through that, you can actually go through and actually put those in there. Okay, so that's one, and we've got a huge whiteboard that actually has appointments and contacts and under contracts on it as well, right when you walk in. So first thing you see is the under contracts on the door and the visual format for the agents. Come on back to the admin section because it's a double room. When you come back to the admin section, what you're seeing is a huge whiteboard that has all the contacts, the appointments, all of that on there as well. All right. So that helps, Darren. I see Sarah says, so are your spreadsheets, you go to your manage your contract to close. We're currently using software. So yes, we are using software for this. We're using Wise Agent. is the software that we use to actually manage our contract to close process. Our spreadsheets are strictly to manage the actual data. And so that we know how much we've got coming in. It really helps us with cash flow, when they're supposed to close, what day of the month they're supposed to close, changing them, when taking them out. So when they do close, so that we know how much cash we got left coming in. And then if they move to another month, taking them out of that month and putting them in the next month. So again, we know how much cash we got coming in, because that cash flow is king. When you know how much cash you got coming in at any given month, you don't have your mega going, hey, we're going to mail out this mailing. And you're like, we got payroll to pay, So you making sure that you've got a cash flow statement there so that everybody knows how much cash you've got coming in. Did you say you can make your own checklist within .loop for each file? So yes, you can do an action plan within .loop. And so there's some action plans within .loop that you can actually do in there as well. So Missy, you can do that. We put the houses up at a time of closing in the window showing a client's name and the number of closing. I love that. It's red 5x5 house. I think ours are just white, and I think they're about 5x5. Yeah, they're just white, and it's just an outline of a house, so you can just write in there. But yeah, the .loop templates are huge. So that make sure that you can even do it set up where your agents have all the templates for them personally, that already has all their names and everything, all their stuff already filled in. Like if you have an admin fee, you can actually do a template for each one of your agents that has the admin fee and all their contact information in the contract. Just build them a template, put them in .loop, and bam, they can use it. If you're running a mega agent team, if you're the admin for a mega agent team, I would even suggest looking into .loop teams, because your admins can have one login and be able to see everybody's information on the team. And if you have designated agency in your market, your agents are not able to see your other agent stuff, and yet your admin can see everybody's stuff. Okay. What else? All right. We'll see anything else coming in. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, here we go. What's your favorite thing you have implemented in the last 6 months? So my favorite thing that I've implemented in the last 6 months, it's actually, I didn't implement it, so I can't take credit for it yet. It's my favorite thing that we've implemented on our team in the last 6 months. As being a bowl coach, I'm on the road constantly, so there's not a lot of things that I get to implement anymore, which is my team thinks is kind of nice, because I usually turn it into mush. Yet the coolest thing is that we had a standard in our contract, and we had gotten lax on that standard of holding our agents to that standard. And so what we did is we went through and we went back and re-clarified our standard, and then had all of our agents re-sign and recommit to that standard. And it was a more hefty standard that was actually in our contract. And so that's been now 3 weeks since we've implemented that standard. And it's been a huge piece for us in the fact that everybody's hitting the standards. We thought we were going to lose some people, and we haven't lost anybody. The standards are actually, people are rising to the challenge, because now they have a standard. They have something to shoot for. Whereas before, it was, go out there and sell as much as you can kind of thing. And we'd had a standard there. We just weren't holding the people to it as well. We'd become a kind of a tight family. It's kind of, it was kind of hard to hold the family set. And so we just said, look, we may lose some people when we do this. We're okay with that. And yet we know that for us to grow to that next level, we've got to go back in there and reset the standard at an even higher level than what was in their original contracts, get them to sign off on it. They all agreed. They all signed off. And they're all hitting it. And so it's pretty powerful to watch that. And it's even more powerful when it wasn't me that implemented it and kind of turned it into mush. And so it's actually working, because Anna, my director of growth and business development, and my EA, Chelsea, they were the two that have rolled that out, and they have done it flawlessly. And it's there's a little bit of buck up at beginning, yet it's worked out, and my team is rising to the challenge. So that's probably the coolest thing that we've implemented on our team. All right. And I'll even give you this one. Personally, the one thing I've implemented, because I am on the road so much and I've got small standards or small luggage requirements, because everything has got to be carried on. I can't have a check, can't worry about a check getting stuck in because I'm going from city to city to city. So instead of carrying the journal for me to write my daily journal every day, I actually went out, Via Williams actually gave me a recommendation on Facebook. I saw on Facebook for the 5-minute app, 5-minute journal app. It's like $4.99. And so using that now to do my journal, it has the gratitudes. It has, what are the things that you're going to do today? And then at the end of the day, it asks you to come back and recap. And it even has your affirmation for the day. So it's pretty powerful. And it was one on my personal piece that I've added into and just kind of taken my morning routine and even my nightly shutdown routine. It's made it a little bit more clear, a little bit more implementable for me. And so it's I like it. It's been really good. Yeah, I'm telling you, those standards, it's very easy sometimes because we get so close. Everybody on the team, the quote unquote team, and I love Matthew Fettick has actually said, you got to stop calling yourself a team. You're a business, you're a company. And so, when you start calling yourself a team, everybody thinks family. And so we got to be in a family. And so it's hard, I know you got things going on, yet you still got to hold people accountable because if not, you're letting their family down. And so like in bold right now, if you had a gap in income, let's say there was a gap, between your goals and what you actually did over the last 12 months, your family was actually counting on that gap to do something. Maybe it was an extra vacation, maybe it was college. And so as a bold coach, my job is to come in and help you, not bring them together, keep the goal and bring up the income to hit that goal or even surpass that goal. And so, yeah, the standards are huge. I mean, without the standards, you really don't have a business. You've kind of got a place where people show up. All right. Anything else? So questions keep coming. I will keep going for 13 more minutes. So if y'all need anything, I'm here. Awesome. So I'll get this one out. I'm not sure if the last one went out. I know there were some challenges uploading the last one out to the YouTube. So I'll get that. I'll check on that, make sure that one goes out. We'll get both of these out this weekend. All of y'all go out there. Have a wonderful day. Go out. David, hello. It's a pleasure to have you on here. Y'all go out there. Y'all be bold. Have an amazing, amazing weeks. Love you all. Thank you all so much for your participation. Go out there and crush it.